Citizens of Rome! Inspired as always by your admiration, the Senate has decided to recount the tale of Ned Kelly, outlaw, bushranger, and national hero of the as-of-yet undiscovered land of Australia, famous for his desperate last stand against the police, wearing a homemade suit of bulletproof armor. But before we dive into the land of billabongs and dingoes, the Senate requires that you press like, subscribe, and enable bell notifications so that you may never miss another History in the Forum! Edward Kelly, known as Ned, was born in Beveridge, Victoria, to father John Kelly, also known as Red, and mother Ellen. Red Kelly had been sentenced of stealing 2 pigs in County Tipperary, Ireland, and transported to Australia as punishment. The Kelly family were selectors, small farmers struggling to make ends meet in the Australian outback. Ned Kelly's childhood was hard. At age 10, he saved another boy from drowning in the river. However, things took a turn for the worse as his father became an alcoholic and came in repeated conflicts with the law. He died when Ned was only 12 years old. At the age of 14, young Ned was taken under the wing of Harry Power, an Irish-born criminal and bushranger. Together they committed several crimes, mostly horse theft and petty larceny. The association with Power, however, was Ned Kelly's first step into the world of bushranging. But what is bushranging, and who are the bushrangers? As many of you know, Australia started off as a prison colony, where the British Empire would send convicted criminals, such as Ned Kelly's father. Many of these criminals escaped the prison settlements and fled into the bush, the wild, untamed Australian outback. Due to the geography and climate of the Australian continent, the land is a harsh desert almost as soon as you move inland from the sea, and this harsh desert, the bush, provided a respite for the bushrangers. The bushrangers were outlaws and criminals, but they were also seen as romantic folk heroes because they served no masters, had their own sort of bandit's honor, and lived a rough, hard-scrabble life which Australians found inspiring. Not helping things were the corruption and cruelty of the colonial authorities, and it is indeed the cruelty of Victoria Colony Police which seemingly drove Ned Kelly and his friends to crime. While young Ned was always running afoul of the law, he never really crossed the line into outlawry until an incident involving a Victorian policeman and his young sister Kate. According to the Kelly family, the policeman was sexually harassing Kate, and the family attacked him in self-defense, while Ned Kelly was nowhere near. The policeman, however, claimed that he had come to arrest Dan Kelly, Ned's brother, for horse theft, whereupon he was attacked by Ned, Dan, and their mother Ellen, who hit the policeman on the head with a shovel. After the incident, Ned and Dan Kelly, as well as their friends Joe Byrne and Steve Hart, fled into the bush, while Ellen Kelly was arrested for the attempted murder of the policeman and sentenced to 3 years of hard labor. They were hiding in the forest when they chanced upon a police camp. 4 policemen had been sent to arrest them. Managing to kill one and capture another while the policemen were split up, the Kelly gang set up an ambush for the remaining police. Only one policeman, who managed to escape in the confusion, survived. The incident, known as the Stringybark Creek Police Murders, named for the creek near which the skirmish took place, led to the Victoria Colony outlawing the Kelly gang and issuing a £2,000 bounty for their apprehension. Because they were outlaws, this meant that any citizen was free to kill or injure the gang without repercussion. But what really changed the story of Ned Kelly was the Geraldary raid and bank robbery. the Kelly gang crossed the border between Victoria and New South Wales and entered the town of Geraldary. They took 2 police constables captive and scouted out the town wearing their uniforms. Then they held up the town bank while taking the patrons hostage. In order to stop outside assistance, they cut the telegraph lines and destroyed the telegraph office. Hostages remembered that Ned Kelly was courteous and respectful, and his effortless charm was almost as deadly a weapon as his guns. In Geraldary, Ned Kelly took 2 actions that earned him the admiration of the people. First, he burned the mortgage papers for debtors and poor farmers, destroying evidence of their debts and freeing them from this harsh burden. He blamed the bankers of living on the blood, sweat, and tears of the small farmers, the selectors as they were known, of which his father was one. Additionally, he dictated the Geraldary letter, addressed to the legislature in Melbourne, in which he denounced the corruption and thuggery of the Victoria Police, called for a more equitable social system, and declared that he had been driven to his extreme acts by the injustice of the colonial administration. By burning the mortgages and dictating the letter, Ned Kelly ceased to be just a common criminal and became a Robin Hood figure, fighting against the rich and helping the poor. And any good revolutionary must eventually make a stand against the government, which is what Ned Kelly did next. After dealing with a police informant, the Kelly gang knew that the police would come after them in a special police train. So they set up a clever ambush in the town of Glenrowan. They had the railway workers rip out the tracks at a key point in the hopes of derailing the train and killing most of the policemen before they even had to face them. For the few that would survive, they'd have a nasty surprise. In the months preceding their ambush, the gang had purchased or stolen several plough moldboards. They heated and hammered these moldboards into makeshift armor for themselves in the Australian bush. The armor included a breastplate, shoulder plates, an apron, and an imposing cylindrical helmet with a narrow eye slit. Initially, it had been claimed that a local blacksmith had helped the gang forge their armor, but later metallurgical research revealed that the armor had been shaped at low temperatures and rather amateurishly. Nevertheless, it was highly effective at stopping bullets, which is what the gang needed it to do. As a drawback, it limited their mobility, as it weighed close to 100 pounds, or 50 kilograms. The plan was thus set: derail the train and then ambush the survivors, using their improvised armor to give them a crucial edge. But then something happened that threw the gang's plan off kilter. One of Glenrowan's residents, a teacher named Thomas Conroe, escaped the gang and notified the police of the gang's plan. The police were able to stop the train before it derailed and prepared to march into Glenrowan in full force. Knowing they had no way of escaping, Ned Kelly and his gang decided to make their last stand at Glenrowan that night. Having released most of the hostages, they donned their makeshift armor and fired on the police. The advancing constables were terrified of the gang members, who looked like hellish beings in their armor, and after the police saw them shrugging off rifle fire, they had become convinced that they were fighting devils. The armor proved effective not only at stopping bullets, but also as a weapon of psychological warfare, as the outline proved very effective at scaring the opposition. Nevertheless, the gang was overcome through sheer volume of fire. Joe Byrne was shot between his breastplate and apron, straight in the groin. Ned Kelly was shot many times through his unarmored arms and legs, including 2 shotgun blasts to the legs. Dan Kelly and Steve Hart were surrounded and ran out of ammunition, upon which they apparently killed themselves in a final act of defiance towards the police. In the morning, a wounded and battered Ned Kelly was recovered by the police. His armor had stopped 19 bullets, but in the end it wasn't enough. Ned Kelly was taken to Melbourne, where he was nursed back to health and made to stand trial for his crimes. He was sentenced to death by hanging by Sir Redmond Barry, a judge who himself has a storied history as an early civic leader of Melbourne. When the judge pronounced his sentence, he added, as was custom, "May God have mercy on your soul." To this, Ned Kelly responded with, "I will go a little further than that, and I say I will see you where I go." Judge Barry would die 12 days after Ned Kelly's execution, presumably of natural causes. Ned Kelly was executed on November 11th by hanging in the Melbourne jail. His last words were reported as, "Such is life." On its face, this is a tragic, action-packed, and diverting story. The dashing outlaw has been a romantic figure which captured the popular imagination for a long time. It seems that almost every folkloric tradition has such a character, some real, others fanciful. But Ned Kelly in particular seems to enrapture Australians. He is considered in many ways Australia's national hero. And while it is easy to understand why he would be admired, it is a peculiar and unique perspective on a dangerous outlaw to elevate him to the position of national hero. Australians have made Ned Kelly their mascot in sport and in war propaganda. They've written books and made films about him, of which the Senate feels the 2003 film starring Heath Ledger as Ned Kelly is the best. They've even made mailboxes in the likeness of his homemade armor. Citizens! The Senate, having exhausted our own understanding of the matter, calls upon you to weigh in and explain this fascination. Was he a hero of the common folk, or was he just a criminal who understood the value of good PR? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments section. Before we go, we'd like to thank you for your attention and input. Please make sure to press like, subscribe, and enable bell notification so you will never miss History in the Forest!